45 minutes sharing this information and then 15 minutes at the Q&A. We have a couple folks from Parks California monitoring the chat. So if you have any issues or any comments, you can put those in the chat directly. But if you do have any questions, we ask that you please use the Q&A function so it's a little easier for us to organize. And you can ask those questions anytime throughout the presentation, but we will wait until the end to answer those questions. So today we'll start off with some introductions of the team. We'll share a little bit about Parks California and some background on career pathways and the Waterway Connections Initiative. We'll share some important dates, and then we'll dive specifically into the grant application. And then we'll share some resources, and we'll finish up with some Q&A at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. I'll start by introducing myself. Like I said, my name is Alfonso Orozco. I'm an associate program manager with Parks California. I'm based in the Bay Area, and I've been with Parks California for almost a year. And my role involves supporting a variety of projects across the organization, one of them being the Career Pathways Grants Program. And I'm really excited to be sharing this program with you all today because I'm a product of a career development program that was focused on public lands, and it completely changed the trajectory of my professional life and my personal life as well. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what kinds of opportunities come from this grants program that may help the next generation of state park stewards. So thank you all for being here today, and I'll pass it over to Becky.
Thanks, Alfonso. I'm Becky Rittenberg. I'm the Senior Resource Stewardship Programs Manager at Parks California, and we're also joined by Emily Henry, who is an Associate Programs Manager and has been working across a few of the other grants programs that Parks California supports. On the bottom of the screen are some of the amazing staff at State Parks who have been working with us on this program launch, including Catherine Caldwell, Lori Turner, and Brandon Littlejohn. We'll be hearing a little bit more from Brandon at the end of the call. He works in talent acquisition for California State Parks and will be sharing some resources. Unfortunately, Catherine and Lori weren't able to join today's call, but if there are questions that are asked, they may be better suited to answer them, so we can help direct those questions to them after the webinar. We can go to the next slide. I want to share just a little bit more about Parks California for those of you that aren't familiar. We're a fairly new nonprofit. We're just wrapping up our 4th year, and our mission is to help strengthen parks and inspire all to experience these extraordinary places. Go to the next slide. And we are set up as the statewide nonprofit partner to California State Parks. We're the statutory nonprofit partner, which means we work inside out as a nonprofit extension to the California State Parks team. We set joint priorities with state park leadership and then develop projects, fundraising campaigns, grant programs to help achieve those or to help address those priorities. Go to the next slide. And in this role, we're uniquely positioned to take a statewide approach, drive cross-sector partnerships, which we hope this program is very much a part of, integrate parks into communities and communities into parks, illuminate local success stories, and then accelerate innovation and investments. Go to the next slide. And so one of those joint priorities that we have been working on with California State Parks is around this question of who will be the future leaders and caretakers of our parks, of our protected areas, and how can we, along with this whole partner network, I think the over 100 people who may be involved in this webinar, how can we really support training and career development pathways to expand who it is who works in parks and who will be leading parks in the future? We can go to the next slide. And in looking at that question, there are a myriad of barriers that may prevent individuals from growing awareness or finding careers in parks and protected land. I'm sure this list is familiar to many, and this is just the start. So we're looking at where are there opportunities to address some of these barriers, especially through career development training programs, workforce development initiatives, and partnerships. And so to do that, we can go to the next slide. We developed this Career Pathways program, and we are wrapping up our 3rd year of the pilot, which some of you on the call may have been a part of, where we had a small program focused just on natural resource, career development programs, partnerships across the state, and we're expanding that now, which we'll talk more about But the program goals, there's 4 of them. The first is to broaden and expand career pathways to jobs in California state parks and public lands, address some of those key access barriers faced by underrepresented communities, add on-the-ground capacity to California State Park high priority projects, youth corps, internships, these types of job training programs can bring a lot of great perspectives, capacity and skills to projects that's much needed across the state. And then lastly, build and strengthen partnerships between communities, organizations, and state parks. So we can go to the next slide. This is a statewide program, and it's funded both by private fundraising by Parks California, but also through this new partnership with California State Parks and their Waterway Connections initiative. This is a new initiative that is, you can see the goal here. It's to expand and increase inland water-related outdoor access to priority communities with an emphasis on parks, facilities, and partnerships. So this Career Pathways program is really keen on that opportunity to expand access through partnerships, and specifically around this concept of building job skills in priority communities that have been defined in this statewide initiative. These priority communities, we'll come back to this as we describe more about the program, but are focused on communities that reside in cities of 2,500 people or more, are near rivers, inland waterways, and inland water systems, and communities that lack meaningful connection to nature for a variety of reasons. So as we walk through the 2024 Career Pathways Grant Program, you'll see there's the statewide grant program, and then there is some emphasis on this inland waterway, inland community connection through the Waterway Connections Initiative. So we'll provide more details about that and are happy to answer questions at the end. I'll pass it off to Alfonso to dig into the details.
Thanks, Becky. All right, so we're going to be looking at the details of this 2024 grant cycle, and this is the exciting piece, right? This is what we're all here to talk about. So in a moment, I will be sharing an overview of what we're looking for, as well as looking at the grant application. But before I get started, I see some questions about the recording, and do want to acknowledge that this is a lot of information that we're sharing it with you. So we will be sharing access to this in a variety of different ways. So this information will be shared on our website, as well as in the resource hub, and will be sent out after this presentation to everyone that's in here and everyone who registered. So you will all have access to this to watch later on or to share with other folks. And Emily will share the resource hub link in the chat. And you'll find a lot of really helpful information in there, including FAQs and other resources to help you apply. So let's go ahead and dive into the details. Emily, can you take us to the next slide? All right, so as we look at the 2024 grant cycle, we have 2 funding tracks available. So we have the implementation grants and the planning and development grants. And implementation grants are 2-year grants that are intended for organizations who are ready to deliver projects or programming on the ground in 2024. So this is starting in June 2024 to May 2026. And these projects will be ready to meet the eligibility criteria, which we'll share in just a moment, and achieve the career development outcomes for participants. These grants are up to $150,000 and for 2 years, and may be eligible for an extension for a 3rd year. For the planning and development grants, this funding is intended for organizations with emerging programs that perhaps require some additional research or staff time to be able to cultivate those partnerships that are so necessary with communities, maybe build out some programming, and coordinate with California State Parks to design the Career Pathways project. This is 9-month funding starting in June 2024 through February 2026. And these grants are really great for organizations who are in the early stages of programming and perhaps aren't ready to take on the implementation level funding. And this could be an opportunity for you to start building your program or to use some of these funds to start a pilot. A couple of other important things to note for these planning and development grants is that grantees will be expected to develop and submit a final project plan at the end of the grant term. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the next slide on what that looks like. But one other thing I want to call out for the planning and development grants is that successful project plans may be eligible for implementation level funding in subsequent years to help you launch your project or program. And one other thing I'll call out with this planning and development grant is that these projects do not necessarily need to be delivering programming to participants in the first year, but they should be designed ideally in partnership for the target populations that you're planning on working with. And we do welcome pilot training programs for the planning and development funds as well. Okay, can you take us to the next slide, Emily? So planning and development grants, like I said, will be building, one of the deliverables will be building a project plan. And these are some of the elements that we expect to see, just the goals and project objectives, scope, budget, what that alignment is with the career pathways program goals, what those tangible outcomes and success metrics will be, the roles and responsibilities, milestones, deliverables, and your timeline for implementation. Next slide. In terms of eligibility criteria, these are the things that we're going to be looking at in our application. So all applications should have these elements embedded within them. So the first one is that you will be providing job training skills, mentorship, work experience, and career development that meaningfully prepare participants for park stewardship and operations careers. So this can include work with natural and cultural resources, facilities and maintenance, interpretation and education. And one of the things that we have provided you in the resource hub is a list of example activities and paths that you can focus on with your program. The second point here is that you will primarily work with and in California state park properties that connects participants to parks, inland waterways, and or beaches. And Becky shared a little bit about that waterways connections piece there already. The third point here is that you will address key barriers faced by participants from communities who have been underrepresented from the California state park workforce. And then the last one is that you'll strengthen partnerships with California state parks. And this last point, we do want the program to be designed to strengthen those partnerships with California state parks, but we recognize that there is a lot of value in programs and organizations that work with multiple agencies and partners. And so we want to encourage those programs to continue to take those types of approaches. Next slide, please. In terms of preference, we do have some preferences laid out here. We do not expect all of the applicants to hit all of the preferences, but successful applicants should hit one or more or two or more of these preferences. And so we just want to walk through some of these with you. So the first preference is that you will connect underrepresented communities with inland waterways, including lakes, rivers, watersheds, and systems. If you're able to demonstrate prior experience implementing career pathways programs, whether that is at state parks or other government agencies, or if you are expanding or scaling a successful existing pathways program. Another one here is that you demonstrate strong partnership with the community-based organizations or leaders that are representative of the communities that you're planning on working with for this program. Next slide, please. Another preference is that you are able to provide participants with meaningful career development experiences and exposure to multiple types of careers in public lands, and that you are including education and training about the state park hiring process. And we do have someone here on the call. You may not be an expert in the state park hiring process, but we have someone on the call who is today, and he will be sharing some resources that you can use in your programming to help achieve that element there. And then the last one here is about delivering memorable experiences in nature. And I think this one is geared towards making sure that this is, more than just necessarily a job or internship. We really want folks to start to build that appreciation and that stewardship of California state parks and all public lands in general as well. Next slide, please. Looking at qualifying organizations, 501c3 organizations are eligible, federal and state recognized tribes, Native 7871 organizations, fiscally sponsored community organizations, and government organizations that are not California state parks. Some important pieces here that we wanted to call out is that if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, you will be asked to submit some additional attachments just to ensure that, you know, that sponsorship is still active. And if you are a 501c3, make sure that your organization is in good standing with the state. That is one of the pieces that we will want to check as well. Next slide, please.
Great, I can jump in here. Oh, could you advance one more, Emily? I think the text isn't showing up. Oh, there we go. So I wanted to share just a little bit more in the goals we talked about, career development opportunities to support people in building awareness and skills in park stewardship and operations. So here are some examples of the state park, California State Park, and other protected land career paths that your program may focus on. So it may be around facilities and maintenance, trails, interp and ed, cultural resources, natural resources. You can see through these pictures, and if you're in this world, you know that there's some incredible jobs in state parks that I think many folks may not know about, that you could be an archaeologist and work in your local state park, or be building trails or working with students across the state, or be sharing cultural histories. So some really neat opportunities, and these are some of the areas where we anticipate the partnerships happening with state parks. I just want to share too, I mean, Alfonso is pointing to this in the preference criteria, but the program should really be more about just the job and the skill building for the job, or like helping to meet minimum qualifications for these different classifications. Should also be about building up the experience and the connections to help support individuals in their growth through a career. So, you know, moving beyond some of those entry-level positions or seasonal positions. So opportunities for project management, leadership development, career development are all great to be baked into these programs. You can go to the next slide. And sharing here, you could advance one more, Emily. Some of the partnership models that we anticipate funding through this, there may be your partnership may not fit in any of these boxes, and that's fine too. These are some of the types of partnership models that we've supported in the past, and we know have been successful with state parks or national parks. So internship programs or apprenticeship programs, youth corps models that really provide exposure to park careers and provide those resources for career advancement. Park academy models that might allow someone to kind of shop around and see different aspects of park management and stewardship. Maybe, you know, lead interpretive programs, and then also learn more about trail work and natural resources. Tribal capacity and skill building to support partnerships with local tribes. We have a couple great examples of these efforts happening with state parks, especially where tribes are working on co-management agreements with state parks, how to build up those skills in the tribal community too, to steward ancestral lands, and maybe not just on state parks, but other public lands as well. And then parks related curriculum building. So maybe you're a community college or have a VOTEC program or adult programming in your community. And this is an opportunity to bring some park curriculum into these existing spaces to new communities is another model that we anticipate supporting through this program. We can go to the next slide. And here, just in our FAQs, we include a list of eligible activities and costs. Here are just some examples of what this might help support. Organizational capacity and program development. You can see that list there, but being able to use these as more flexible funds to support partnership development, project management, support time for case managers to really be helping individuals transition from training into job placement, site visits and outreach, whether that's site visits to state parks to learn more about potential projects that you could work on through a training project, or outreach to communities. Attending state parks trainings, we will share a little bit more later, but there are trainings that state parks puts on that outside entities can sometimes attend. So that might be an opportunity too, to participate in a trails class or others to build skills within your organization or within your staff. curriculum development. A key one around the access barriers are supporting your participants through wages, housing, food, travel, whatever is unique to the barriers that your community faces. So this funding helping to support that, as well as supportive wraparound services like career development workshops or gear and equipment, counseling, GED or degree assistance, those other elements that help somebody build resilience and kind of those next steps in their journey, and then training and certifications as well. You can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I don't know why they're popping up this way. Some ineligible costs, fundraising, grant writing, lobbying, and then costs outside the grant performance period. And then I just want to share our indirect policy too, because I do think we have some colleges and universities on the webinar. So we can share a link to our indirect cost rate policy, but we provide up to 15% for colleges, universities, and government agencies. And then for nonprofit organizations, we have no fixed minimum or maximum rate for indirect costs. And we ask you to include, the true cost of implementing your program. And we'll look at the project budget as a whole. Go to the next slide. Another part of this program to make the partnership successful in the application, we'll ask that you share who it is you connected with at Parks. So this is looking for that pre-project coordination with Park staff prior to applying and submitting your application. So we'll ask that you provide the name and contact information with who you connected with. And during the review process, we'll also reach back out just to ensure that the project is feasible within the timeline set in the proposal. So if you're not sure who to contact, we'd love to help connect you with the appropriate people, either in your region or with folks on statewide staff. So feel free to reach out at grants@parkscalifornia.org, and we'll do our best to contact you or connect you. Go to the next slide. And some of the things you might want to discuss with your park partner, probably what you would already do, but we're just sharing these as sort of best practices, talking through project goals and scope, roles and responsibilities, making sure that the schedule will work within the park's timeline, cost estimates and permits, if those are applicable to your project, figuring out who the technical supervisors and mentors may be from the state parks team. Especially the mentorship piece has been a real indicator, I think, of success for participants when they can build those professional connections with state park staff. So coordinating on that and coordinating on where there might be good career development opportunities, building in a career development workshop with state parks employees to learn more about how they approach their journey and what advice they might give. Those types of elements are great to figure out in those pre-coordination discussions. And if you're going to do the planning and development grant, these may be conversations that you get deeper into through the period of the grant. We can go to the next slide. So some important dates before we get into the details of the application. The proposals are due end of February at 5 p.m. We don't have that there, but end of the day, Feb 29. And in the interim, we'll have some community office hours and individual office hours if you have specific questions about your project or about the application process. And I think Emily will be popping those into the chat so you can see what times are available. If we find that those are filling up, we'll open up more dates as well. The review period will be March through April, with grants awarded in May, and projects can begin in June. Go to the next slide. And Alfonso will walk through the application.
Thanks, Becky. And if you sign up for those community office hours, you'll be mostly talking to me. So hopefully we'll see lots of you in those calls. So now we're going to be taking a deeper look into the grant application. So we can go to the next slide. So first, I just wanted to share that we will be using this grants portal called Foundants to manage the application process. You can access the application from the Career Pathways page on our website, or Emily will also be sharing it in the chat as well. If you have not used our grant system before, registration is pretty easy, but if you're having any issues, whether that's access or otherwise, there's a contact email on the main page of the application portal, so you can feel free to email that if you're having any issues. One of the nice things is that you can go in there and save and revisit your application as you continue to make updates. If you prefer to view the questions without having to log in, we do offer the questions in a preview of the questions in PDF form in the resource hub. However, if you are planning on applying, we highly, highly encourage you to create that profile in Foundant and start the process. And one of the main reasons is that this is going to be one of the only ways that we have to share updates to folks who are in the application process. And so this helps us to be able to communicate with you throughout the application process. One other thing to note is that because we have two funding tracks, there will be two different application processes. So make sure that if you're applying for implementation, you select implementation. If you're applying for planning and development, that you apply to that one. Next slide, please. All right, so in this next section, we're going to look through specific questions that are in the application. Most of the questions have more detail in Foundant, but we just wanted to share a preview of what you can expect. Also, since there are two different applications for the two different grants, you can expect to see in this presentation some similarities, but also some differences. And I've noted them here for you to know which ones are which. So this first set of questions are the same on both applications. And really, we're just trying to get a sense of who you are, who your organization is at a high level. What is your project timeline and what are your costs? And more importantly, like what is that why? What is the need for your project? This is also a great place to share some of the outcomes from previous programs, even if it's not from working directly with state parks. Another thing is that that's important is to make sure that you're calling out in terms of project location, like being very specific of where you're going to be working. Next slide, please. In this next slide, you will see that the program details are different for the implementation and the planning and development. For the implementation questions, this is an opportunity to share more about the training program. We just really want to know, what's the participant experience going to be like? What kind of training program are you running? What are the specific career paths that you're focusing on? What will the participants be receiving? What specifically will your program do to prepare participants for park careers? And in the planning and development one, we really just want to know, what is your process to develop the project plan? Who are you going to be involving? And how are you designing the projects so to make sure that you're going to be accomplishing the goals of the program? Next slide, please. In this slide, you'll see we're going to ask some questions about population and geographic community served. So for that first question there, we really just want to understand the identities of the communities that you're going to be serving. And in that second question, we just want to understand the geographic areas or the regions where those individuals reside. For the additional questions, these are just related to the implementation. And this is us just wanting to understand how you're going to be recruiting and retaining your participants. And this next question about cultivating that lifelong connection is around, developing those memorable experiences in nature. And then just a question on how you are planning on sustaining the program beyond the funding that's being provided. Next slide, please. Here we have some more questions that are going to be on the application related to goals, outputs, and outcomes. For the implementation, they're going to be more numbers oriented, right? So we're going to want to know the number of participants, how often those participants are spending out in the field, What are specific participant outcomes you have for them, and how will you be measuring them? So we know that you're thinking them ahead of time. And for the planning and development grants, the main outcome is going to be the project plan, but we want to know what additional outcomes you intend to achieve through this funding. And then another shared list of questions for both here. The first one is the project timeline. And this one is a place for you to list out what are going to be the key milestones throughout your grants that you're going to be hitting. We also want to know on your staff who you're going to be, who's going to be working on this, and who are those key partners, and how you're going to be strengthening those state park partnerships, and just identifying any challenges that you anticipate ahead of time. Next slide, please. And here I'm gonna ask Emily to chime in on some of the attachments that we'll be asking of you in the application.
Yeah, thanks, Alfonso. So here is a list of the applications that you'll be asked to submit for your attachments you'll be asked to submit for your applications. First one is the project budget, which I'll talk about on the next slide, so I'll focus on the other ones first. We'll ask for a list of board members for us to get a sense of your organization. If you have an existing agreement with California State Parks, we ask for you to share that as well so we can get a sense of what your partnership is like so far. We do a programmatic review of all of the applications, as well as a financial review of all of the organizations that apply and we consider funding. So to do that, we ask for a recent balance sheet and income statement for your organization. This does not have to be audited. As recent as you're able to provide will give us the best sense of information that we could use for the financial review. We'll also ask for if you have available audited financial statement. So if you do have one available, you can submit it here, knowing that not everyone is at the organization size that this is required, or if they choose to do so. We also ask for your recent 990 form. So at the time of application, we'll ask for your 2022 990 to be submitted. If you don't have that for some reason, please submit your 2021 990 and give us a little bit of information in the application as to why your 2022 is not available. We also ask for a photo and liability release for our implementation grants only. And then if you are a fiscally sponsored project, we do ask for a letter certifying that fiscal relationship. So just something from your fiscal sponsor stating that this is, they're your fiscal sponsor and who, just so we can know that that is current and valid for our records as well. Want to also state that if you are a tribal organization or a government entity, let us know if you can't provide this information. We do know your organizations can function a little bit differently than a traditional 501c3 nonprofit. So we can help figure out with you what the best way to go about it is. And this is something we have done for all of our grant programs. Next, I want to just show our project budget template. For those who've applied for funding from Parks California in the past, this will look pretty familiar, but this is what we'll be using for this application cycle. If you are looking at the application in preview mode on Foundant, please note that you'll have to actually be logged in to see this budget template, and it should also be available in the resource hub that we have. But here, what we look for is some information on the actual program staff, what you're looking to fund for salary, personnel, anything related to that. And then you can also outline other program operating costs. So things like we've talked about, travel, housing, other things, that are just true costs to executing the program you would like to. These other sections, the state park costs and the contractors and consultants costs, these are just suggestions, things that might be in your application, or it might be as a part of your budget. So feel free to adapt this to the best of what makes sense for your proposal. And something new that we've added is this bigger column on the right. We'll just give you some space to provide some insight into what it is exactly that these will be covering, knowing that this is just providing a brief snapshot. So whatever information you could provide on that specific budget line item will be welcomed and encouraged to input here in the budget template. And if we have any additional questions about it, we'll be sure to reach out for you for that too.
Thanks, Emily. And now that we've shared a lot of really good information with you all, we do have a quick poll that we wanted to launch just to understand a little bit more how folks are leaning. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it, and I'll give a couple seconds here for folks to fill it out. All right, we have about half the folks who have participated. I'll give it another 15 to 20 seconds. Wonderful. Thank you all for participating in that. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Okay, Emily, do you mind taking us to the next slide here? Okay, so up next, we have some resources that will be helpful to you in your application process. We are going to start with Brandon, who is with State Parks, who's going to share some resources about, how to support your participants in finding careers in state parks. So I'll pass that over to Brandon.
Hey, Alfonso, hold on. Let me see. It doesn't let me get on video. All good. You guys don't want to see my face anyways. How's it going, everyone? Thank you again, Alfonso, Becky, and Emily, for including California State Parks talent acquisition. Over the past few years, some of the common questions I received while I worked at different state organizations were, do I have to come into work? How often do I have to come into work? And can I telework 100% of the time? However, at State Parks, we have the largest park system in America with the most beautiful landscapes. Going to Crystal Cove, Asilomar, or Old Town San Diego is way more exciting than a moldy office building. Even our parks headquarters in Sacramento is one of the greatest government buildings ever built. So coming into one of our 280 locations is an adventure and lifestyle. It's not just a job. Two of our biggest resources to promote State Parks careers are our Live the Parks Life website and the marketing collateral showcasing career paths for some of our hard to fill and mission critical classifications, such as the Park Maintenance Series. On our career path flyers, you'll see a brief description of the position, the salary, and minimum qualifications for each level in the career ladder. Next slide, please. Key to successful sourcing for talent acquisition is finding the right candidate, the right position at the right time. However, throughout my 21 years in state service, another common question I receive is, how do I find out when exams will be announced and when new jobs are posted? And the common response you'll hear is that check the CalCareers website every week, and hopefully you'll see that right position at that right time to apply for. But at State Parks, we provide stellar customer service and resources to ensure we get those right candidates at the right time. We offer a Parks Jobs mailing list where you can sign up on our Live the Parks Life website, and we will send you tailored information about when exams and job openings are posted. So no longer the inefficient process of having to check the website every day or every week. You'll get a direct email, and your individuals that are part of your program can also sign up for these mailing lists to get those targeted emails, so they will never miss out on an amazing opportunity with our department. The great thing about State Parks is that we have dozens of exciting careers that most other organizations cannot offer, such as tour guides, maintenance aides, lifeguards, rangers, water and sewage plant supervisors, park and recreation specialists, historians, museum curators, and many more. So you will not ever be bored with the career opportunities that are available with state parks. Sometimes navigating the state hiring process can be a little cumbersome, and that's why the Parks Recruitment Office is here for you to provide whatever assistance you may need. If you need our team to come out and talk to individuals that are part of your program about the careers available, we are willing to do that either virtually or in person. We also have a career center located on 7th and P in downtown Sacramento, which has open hours from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we can also schedule a workshop, or we can bring the workshop to you. We can have a training for trainers for any of your career coaches, and we can provide tailored one-on-one consultation in person or virtually. That consultation will include navigating the CalCareers website to find that perfect job. We can also help individuals tailor their application or teach career coaches how the Parks Recruitment Office informs individuals about how to tailor their application, or if anybody wants to participate in mock interviews, we also offer that service as well. Please reach out to me at recruiting@parks.ca.gov, or you can email me directly at brandon.littlejohn@parks.ca.gov, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brandon. I think I'll pass it over to Becky here.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon. And seriously, take advantage of the resources that Brandon and his team have put together. It's amazing to see how much, like, the service that they can provide both to partners as well as to individuals who are looking for careers in parks. There's more information about some of what Brandon shared, one on the website that we put in the chat. And then we also included links to a number of the resources that he shared in this grant, this Career Pathways Resource Hub. It's a Google Drive that has documents that we'll continue to update. Some of those include the FAQs. If there's questions that come up here that we haven't already addressed in the FAQs, we'll include responses there. There's the application questions lists if you want to preview those before jumping into Fountain or share the questions with collaborators. More information about the indirect cost policy. There's a folder of state park career path resources that include this partner toolkit that Brandon mentioned, provides some resources to you around, what you might be able to partner with the Workforce Planning Office on in providing resources to your participants. And then there's also a training calendar. This will be updated over time, but I mentioned that some of these trainings that State Parks hosts are open to outside entities. And so there's a list of ones that are scheduled for the first half of next year. The training calendar won't be updated for the fiscal year of 24-25 until the middle of next year. So keep an eye on that, because we'll work with state parks to keep those updated. So you can see those are a great opportunity, again, especially the trails classes, to use these funds to support your team in attending, building those relationships and building those skills. We'll also include the webinar recording and the slides on that resource hub, as well as emailing those out to everybody that's registered for today's webinar. So with that, oh yeah, and we'll share too, if you have questions, if you're a youth corps and you have questions about partnering with the department on projects, there may be examples or projects where a youth corps or partner may already be working with state parks through an existing contract. And this grant opportunity could provide flexible funding to help either build capacity for that project to scale, or provide more of those supportive services that perhaps the state parks contract can't support. those types of things. And we've done that in the past. And so we really encourage those types of partnership opportunities where you can leverage this grant opportunity for an existing project. And if you do have questions about the process for contracting directly with state parks as a youth corps, Lori Turner's contact information is there. She's the statewide program manager for that. And then James Sylvia is also on the team, and he's on the webinar today. So if there are questions around that, we can also bring James in to help support answers there. We can go to the next slide. So with that, I think we're going to shift over to the Q&A. So pop your questions in there if you haven't already. We have been working on putting answers together, and we'll answer some of these live as well. So Emily, do you want to start by answering the question by Jay Watson? Because I think that might be relevant for many folks on the call.
Yeah, I can do that. And let me hit answer live, see what that does. So Jay asked regarding the inland waterway connection, does the project have to have that connection in the community itself where participants reside, or could it also provide such a connection somewhere else in the state, such as Bay Area participants serving the North Coast Redwoods District of California State Parks? And the answer is that is totally fine and eligible. We don't have like a strict definition at this time of like, here's what it means to be an inland park or an inland community, but really relying on the priority community definition we have in this funding guidelines will, I think, be the most helpful. So, in summary, it can be either let's say a coastal community working at an inland park, or an inland community working somewhere else, say closer to the coast. And we welcome, those types of kind of creative thinking around what that could look like, recognizing it may look different for everyone. And I will also say, if you have some questions about, does the community you're looking to serve in this location you're looking to do it at make sense? Is it competitive? Let our team know, and we can help answer those questions as they come up too.
Great. Thanks, Emily. We also got a question about what project size we're looking to fund. Alfonso, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so as I've mentioned previously, with the implementation grants, we're looking at up to $150,000 for 2 years, and the planning and development for $30,000 for 9 months. And we expect that depending on the complexity of the projects, there will be a range for the program costs. So some may require that full amount, but there may be some that require, $30,000 to $50,000 for the implementation level grants. So it's really going to depend on your project. So we ask that you sort of request the true cost of your programs with a max of $150,000 for those implementation grants and $30,000 for those planning and development grants.
Great, thanks, Alfonso. We've got another question around location. Should applications focus on a regional program, or are statewide program development efforts encouraged? And I would say we're looking for a mix. So in some cases, really looking at what partnership can help address the needs of the target community that you're working with. So in some cases, a local project might be more effective depending on what community partnerships you have already developed. So I think it just depends. We're looking for both local projects, statewide projects that might scale. So maybe you've had a successful local project that now you can move to the regional level or even the statewide level. Those are of interest. But I think for the statewide project, something that we will definitely be looking at closely are recruitment strategies, and just making sure that you have those community-based relationships to support the target priorities of the project. I have two questions that actually, Brandon, if you're up for it, might be best to answer.
Sounds good.
Great. One of them is about currently offered paid internships through state parks. Can you share more about any existing internship positions that state parks has?
Yeah, we have a variety of internship positions with California State Parks, both paid and non-paid. And we even also have a volunteer program. To find out the latest and greatest regarding where those internship opportunities are available, please visit our livetheparkslife.com website, because we post all of our positions on that website, and it's a lot easier to navigate than most other government websites. It's right there. And you can also sign up for our weekly email list, and you can get direct internship opportunities sent to your personal email address.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Actually, it looks like the other question.
I think the other question I answered in the chat,
great.
was that the question about if you are not receiving a grant from Parks?
I've just lost it. I'll come back to it. It was around if you could provide virtual, virtual career path talk with existing older youth programs that aren't funded. Yeah, that's the one. You did answer it. Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Great. So we're just sifting through. These are great questions. Another one that might be applicable to many on the call. If our program offers an overall career exploration program or workforce development program, would the focus of this grant have to be solely state parks careers, or could the program still include other careers? Would that project still be a good fit? And I would say we'd encourage that, where this, maybe one career path of many that is supporting participants and getting exposure. I think if you can share how you're still developing and strengthening that partnership with state parks and offering people career development opportunities in this space, it could still be a competitive project. There's a question about the approximate results from the earlier poll. Sorry if those weren't made live. My quick scan, and Alfonso, you can correct me, but we've had about a third planning and development grants, about a third implementation, a third unsure. Oh, great. Were you able to pop it back up? Existing program, about 30%, new programs, 56%, that's great. I mean, we're really looking at this program as an opportunity to build new partnerships as well as support existing. So that's a good mix to see. And then, yeah, great representation across the various career paths. Okay, I'm just looking at other questions that are coming in. There's a question about the inland waterway connection and as that might relate to the program. So question is, does the pathway program have to be only about rivers, or can it be a part of the curriculum? It can be a part of the curriculum. I think the connection of inland waterways to, the larger landscape, the larger watershed, the larger region is certainly encouraged. So it can be a component of a bigger program. We've got a few more minutes. Alfonso, Emily, are there questions that you're seeing that you want to address? I'm just sifting through to see what we've got.
I think one that was answered in the chat that I just wanted to reiterate is are CSUs, UCs, and community colleges eligible? And that's yes, definitely. And we would love to see some proposals from community colleges or UCs or CSUs.
I also just want to lift back up one of the questions I answered about connecting with staff. So I'd reshared the link to sign up for community office hours as well as for the one-on-one conversations. I think either would be a great, option. The community office hours are happening sooner. So even if you have a specific question to your proposal, please drop in and ask it there. There may be other applicants as well who have the same question as you. It's part of the reason why we're doing a community office hour approach, so that we can, you can hear the other questions that are coming up as well.
Thanks, Emily. There's a question about if if an implementation grant splits participant times between state parks and another organization or organizations, is there a minimum time split between the two? No, there wouldn't be. I mean, I can give you an example of a project. It was a youth corps project where participants spent the summer working across different public lands, and state parks was a 1 to 2 week component of their experience. But those are great too, right? You get exposure to multiple potential employers as well as career paths and locations. So yeah, we encourage those types of partnerships, so long as state parks is one of the key partners.
I see a question in here about individuals. If you're working with individuals that have DACA status or DACA status eligible, I don't think any of us on this call know the answer to that, but that's something that we can definitely look into and we can follow up.
And then there's a question about partnering on an application. I'm happy to talk about how we've fielded this in the past, unless Becky or Alfonso, you have. Okay, great. So we recommend it. So I'll only read the question. The question is, if a nonprofit and a CSU want to apply and possibly also want to partner together, could they each submit applications that work in support of the overall goal? Or, basically, could they receive funding as they work towards the same goal? Typically, the way we approach this in our grant programs is that if the project is the same that you're working on, we ask that you submit one application. If it is possible that there are aspects of each of your programs that do have some sort of collaboration to it, that you could submit separate applications. But if it is for the same concrete project, we ask that one project be submitted as one proposal.
Great, thanks, Emily. Well, I think we're just about out of time. There's one more question in here about implementation grants. Regardless of the amount requested, can the grant funds awarded be spent in a single year? Technically, yes, but I think we'd encourage multi-year projects that can learn from year 1 and year 2, or provide opportunities for participants from year 1 to advance into a different role in year 2. There's some great examples of that with youth corps members moving into crew leads in year 2, or interns turning into coordinators. So I think we shift the design of this program to be multi-year partly for that reason. So we do encourage that. Well, it's 4 o'clock, so I think we'll wrap up here. Thank you all so much for participating. And again, sign up for the office hours. If you have more questions, drop us questions to grants@parkscalifornia.org. We can help connect you with state park staff if you don't have existing contacts. And we look forward to seeing what proposals come in. If you did participate in this webinar, you'll receive a recording and slides to the presentation. And we'll also follow up with the links to the Grant Resource Hub as well.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thank you again, Becky.